the federal government has overturned a ban which stopped the territories from deciding on their own voluntary euthanasia laws. The universal adoption of euthanasia will give the Northern Territory and the ACT the same powers as the other states and territories. Former Liberal MP Kevin Andrews led the push against the Northern Territory's Euthanasia Rights Act back in the Howard years, and he joins me now to discuss these latest developments. Kevin, always great to see you. You, of course, were the face for many, many people during the 90s and 2000s against euthanasia. It was called the Andrews Bill that you brought in to many people. It was a euthanasia bill. So what has changed in the 25 years? And obviously you would be disappointed by the latest developments, but give us your take on it.
Well, thank you, Rowan. If you go back 25 years ago, this was out of the blue. The Northern Territory introduced legislation that hadn't been introduced in any state in Australia. Effectively, a handful of legislators in the Northern Territory Assembly decided for the rest of the country that we could have euthanasia. I say for the rest of the country because people could and did, in fact, travel to the Northern Territory to receive the lethal injection. So this was very radical change at the time, and I'm disappointed, obviously, 25 years later, that this has been overturned. But I think in some respects, unfortunately, it's inevitable when the states of Australia have already introduced euthanasia laws.
And what do you see of the downside of what has occurred?
Well, this is a very profound moral and legal change. For centuries, we have always had laws and ways of urging people, discouraging people from committing suicide. Even today, one of the big worries we have is about various groups of people in our community, in our society, who are prone to commit suicide. Young people, farmers in desperate times, veterans, for example. There are many groups where there are programs in place to try and help people and to prevent suicide. But now we've taken the step in our law to say that there is a group of people for whom suicide is allowable. Not only is it allowable, we'll actually put in place the means by which they can be assisted to bring about their own death, to commit suicide. That's a very profound moral change. And the difficulty with this is not just that moral change in which we say that some lives are less worthy than others for the dignity and the freedom and the respect which we should uphold all human life. But what's happened when you look at overseas jurisdictions such as the Netherlands, you see an expansion of those categories. So it's not only the elderly who are terminally ill, it's young people, and indeed it's gone in some jurisdictions to people who have no terminal illness whatsoever and simply don't wish to continue to live. Once those boundaries are expanded, and it includes people who don't consent to getting a lethal injection, then we've stepped, I think, into very dangerous territory.
And Kevin, you've got a piece, a terrific article in next week's Spectator Australia talking about this, and that you've got a great observation in there from your original speech to Parliament 25 years ago, and I'll paraphrase you, and you can give me the correct quote, but you basically said that any law, that in the case of euthanasia, ultimately, if it goes wrong or deaths occur, unwanted or whatever it might be, or even murder, it is the most vulnerable people who will be hit by euthanasia laws. And you say that you said 25 years ago that any law that is worse for the most vulnerable people has to be a bad law.
That's what I said in my speech on the second reading of the bill in the House in 1996, and that was that a law which fails to protect vulnerable people will always be a bad law. And I think that's true today, as it was quarter of a century ago. Yes, laws can be enacted, but it doesn't make them necessarily ethically correct and the sort of laws that we should have. I mean, people are concerned about dying in pain, yet the law in Australia never stopped the discontinuance of medical treatment, which was futile, that's not going to achieve anything, or indeed burdensome. Nor did the law stop the provision of pain relief, the most effective pain relief, even if coincidentally that might hasten death. That's always been the law so far as this area is concerned in Australia. I practiced in that area of the law before, when I was at the bar and before I went into Parliament. So the law was very clear. So we've taken quite a radical step beyond providing pain relief or allowing people to discontinue futile or burdensome treatment.